Hey everyone, Superintendent Steve Clugston here, Superintendent of Pine Tree ISD. You know, been in this business for 32 years, and I've seen changes that have happened, and probably the biggest change has really been changes in families. When I was growing up, it didn't really matter if you're wealthy or poor. The vast majority of kids still went home to a stable home that believed in hard work and really valued, education as a way to better yourself. Today, for a myriad of factors, that's really changed. Today we still have those kids that go home to a stable family and value education. Those things and those kids are being successful at a high rate. But what we've seen is really a change in our poor families, and a lot of today is the broken home. It's single mamas trying to figure out how to make a living, and so that has really created a big challenge for public education. When we look at that, if we look at across the state, the state has changed a great deal. Today we got about 27% of our students are white in the state of Texas, and the rest are minority. Over 60% of our students total are economically disadvantaged. And how well we educate those kids is the key to the future of Texas, because we need to educate those kids to go out and be prosperous if we want our state to prosper. And that only happens with good policy. And a whole lot of superintendents out there always want to gripe about, we need more money, more money, more money. Well, we need good policy that allows us to teach these kids the things they need to know in order to be successful. And our role has changed a little bit in that, half the jobs they're going to have haven't been invented. So it's not so much about what we're teaching them, it's the habits we're building inside of them that's going to allow them to adapt to a future that's going to be ever changing. We're talking about, dependability, hard work, having some grit, not quitting just because it gets hard, being able to get along with others, to work as a team, to be able to adapt, to be able to learn new things. And those habits generally, over time, they were taught at home, they were taught, at school, they were taught in the other areas you went to, whether it be Little League or anywhere else. But when we're talking about our poor families today, quite often, who go home, our kids that go home to broken homes, about the only place that's going to be taught is any place with structure, and that's going to be a public school quite often. And so as a school, we have to understand that the culture we create for these kids is essential to their success. And that means I need these kids as often as I can get them. Right now, I get them about 15% of the hours in a year. Teach them everything I need to teach them academically, and teach them how to do that as a challenge. That means I need them here every day I can get them. That means attendance has got to be a big deal. That means I need help from state in how to, to make sure that happens. Kids acting up and not doing what they're supposed to and messing up the learning for other kids. That's something we need to be able to deal with. Good policy helps with that. And right now, one of the big answers that I get from some legislators out there is they think, well, we need vouchers. We need to be able to send these kids to a private school. Here's the thing. That doesn't help the kids that we need to educate. It doesn't help them in any way. There's about 5.4 million kids in public ed. There's about 308,000 kids in private school. The 308,000 in private school are all pretty well to do. If they want the money to follow them to private school, currently we're not paying for their education. Their parents are, because they're choosing to take it to a private school. They're more than welcome to do that. But if we're going to add that to the taxpayer's back pocket, that's going to add 10,000, a little over 10,000 per kid times 308,000. That's going to add about 3.1 billion to the taxpayer's bill annually. Now here's the thing, $3.1 billion is a lot of money, and that's every year. So what could we do with 3.1 billion if we choose that we need to spend that and add that to the taxpayer's back pocket? Well, we get every teacher in the state about a $10,000 raise. We could give every homeowner another $25,000 off their homestead exemption. We could probably give every police officer, all 78,000 of them, we could probably give them about a $10,000 raise and probably have enough money to add another 5,000 officers. I'm not saying that's exactly what we need to do. What I'm saying is there's a myriad of things we could use that money for. I just don't think enhancing the back pockets of parents that are well off and choosing to go to private school is the best use of our funds. And here's the other problem. Does doing this really help the kid that needs it? I mean, if the argument is that we've got a poor kid in a bad neighborhood and the school that's there is not good and he needs to go to a private school, here's the problem. One of the private schools the governor was bragging on was one down in the Houston area, Cypress Christian. $20,000 to go there as a high school student. And if you want to be an extracurricular, you had to pay for each one of those. And I think it had a $450 application fee. Plus, they don't provide bus service. They're not providing free lunch. Oh, and if you're not academically on grade level or above, you can't get in. The kid we're talking about, that kid's not going to fit that role, not going to fit the bill. So it doesn't help that kid. You know who takes that kid regardless of his background? The public school does. That kid's future is dependent on how good a job we do in public school. That's his future, because if we don't do a good job with that kid, society gets to write his future, and that's not a very good future. So we take that kid, we take pride in what we want to do, and we want to take and love that kid and push that kid and help that kid make his own way, to write his own story. And that doesn't happen, easily. It's not complicated. It's just not easy to do because it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of love. And figuring out how we try and create education for the haves and have-nots doesn't help that situation. I need my good kids here. And that means I've got to provide an environment that families that value education can value. But I also have to have an environment that takes that kid and instills the things in him that our other kids are going to get at home, here, and everywhere they go. Because in the circle that kid runs in, they probably don't exist. And there's no fault of his own. So we have to instill that stuff. So it's a battle. But how well we do that is the future of our state. So that means we need policies that make sure we can instill that in that kid. That's what we need. We don't need policies that help line the pockets of people who are doing well. We need policies that help us meet the needs of kids so everybody gets an opportunity to get through the window of opportunity, no matter how wide it's open, and write their own future. Thank you.